Deborah, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks, Dave. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So you've been in the PR game since 1999. How have you done this? That's a long time.
It is, isn't it? It's my 25th anniversary of my business since,
Wow.
we started DKPR back in 1999, February 1st, actually.
Hmm.
And, I was in PR even before that. So it's coming up to 30 years now, but I started my own company in 1999. I think that PR is one of those industries that is always in demand, and then it actually mushrooms into and morphs into something else. You know, over the years I've seen it go from traditional media relations to social media to influencer relations, and to people being coached and taught now how to do their own media relations.
Right. And that wasn't the case off the top when you started. It was a lot different ball game back then.
It really was. I mean,
Okay.
PR people were almost mini celebrities in their own right. I don't know if you remember, people used to call publicists celebrity publicists because, they were all clamoring to be clients with them because they seemed to hold this magic golden wand where they could, sprinkle media coverage over people once because they had this big fat Rolodex,
Yeah.
you know? Which of course now we just like sort of coin the phrase, oh, they have a big Rolodex. But all that really means for some of you that don't know, I know you know what it means, but it means just having a contact list that is yours and yours alone. It couldn't be found on the internet. It couldn't be found on a database. It was something that you built relationships with people. Then you put your like trusty little card into your Rolodex. And I remember people like stealing Rolodexes from PR agencies when they left, or bringing their Rolodex and throwing it down with a big thump on the table and saying, "This comes with me when I leave." So that's kind of how long I've been around. That, before the databasing system started where you could just get press contacts anywhere.
Right. Wow. So as a PR person, like you're a perfect example. You've had to adapt different technologies, different ways of marketing, doing things, reaching out to people. Back in the day, the PR person controlled the narrative. They could, send out press releases, talk to their contacts. But nowadays, in the advent of like TikTok, such a personal app that anybody can jump on and totally like torpedo your client, and you can't control that.
Yeah.
So, like, how do you navigate something like that? Like, obviously, there are so many celebrity news happening now. We won't want to don't want to date this episode, but it's hard to control the narrative if you're like a publicist for a celebrity, especially.
It is really hard to control the narrative. And one of the reasons for that is because everybody uh, believes what they hear. I mean, there's a little bit more of that going around, right? People believe it, what they hear, what they see, and what they read on the internet. And so our jobs now became tougher because what we had to then do is try to get ahead of the story, right? So if you know that something could possibly blow up, your job is to really counsel your client and say, here are some options that we can take and try to get ahead of this, what could happen. But like you said, you can get blindsided and things can just pop up on TikTok and you have no idea what's happened. And at that point, you really just have to, be true to yourself, be authentic, tell your client that they have to be always telling the truth and they always should be authentic and apologize if need be, and talk about how they can fix the situation, or what they choose to do in the future to, maybe help other people, if
Mhm.
they've done something wrong, and maybe do a, community service campaign or something like of that nature. But I think the things that really blow up now tend to be things that, used to make the front page of a paper, and then the paper was recycled the next day, and it wasn't really something that kind of moved as quickly as it did across not only our country but around the globe. So that really is the issue here. And I think, crisis communications has really gone up in terms of the type of popularity. It's gone up as a popular, job. Like people haven't really thought of too much about being crisis communications experts unless they worked in the corporate world. And now I think entertainment publicists are thinking, oh, I'm a strategist and a crisis communications expert all rolled into one, you know? So it has really changed. And it also has changed because you do need to keep up with all the technology. You can't just rely on traditional media to get the word out. And in fact, a lot of people don't even want newspaper articles. People that I know
Mm.
that I've had as clients have said to me, it's really not important to me. What's really important for me is to get on podcasts or to get as well, in online publications that they really feel have a big audience that is their target audience. So in a way, it's actually morphed into something where you can reach your target audience faster than you could in the past.
And less gatekeepers, right?
Yeah. Well, and then that's a bad thing and a good thing as
Okay.
well. I mean, the
Okay.
bad side is that anyone can create a persona and be that 15-minute celebrity for
Mm.
doing something that's not really very interesting or maybe something really stupid or and so that's really hard to break through if
Mhm.
you feel like you've got some real talent and you really have something to show the world. Sometimes the talentless, you know, people will get in there before you. But then on the other hand, so the gatekeepers have been media who still hold the cards to basically say, I think you're interesting. I think you'll be interesting to my audience. And so the PR person is the broker who sells that story, right? We're a sales agent, really. We sell it to the client that this is the pitch we're going to make. We give the pitch to the editor. The editor says, well, yes or no. And sometimes they help you work on that pitch because they'll say yes or no emphatically and tell you what they're really looking for. And then you might have to go back to your client and say, we got to change this narrative and change the story if you really want to get that front page article in the Globe and Mail in the entertainment section, for
Mhm.
example. And so sometimes the gatekeeper, then being the editor, can actually give you credibility because people will value the fact that you got into the Globe and Mail on the front page and that, lots of people could see that it was pitched in a way and vetted by editors so that people know it to be true, right? So in this world of disinformation and misinformation,
Mhm.
we sometimes still trust the traditional media a little more.
Right. So, okay, it's interesting. I rarely watch traditional media anymore. I'm all about TikTok. I'm all about podcasts, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
That stuff's I don't know about you. I think it's easier to measure impact. Say Deborah gets her client on like a big time podcast, Joe Rogan, you know that guy's going to get a load of attention, right? Whereas you go to a Globe and Mail, like how do you measure that? Or like a TikTok, you could see the views. You know what I mean? It's if I'm a client, do you think clients are savvier now, PR clients? When they come on board, they're like, okay, I want to see these results. I want to see the views. I want to see what I'm getting right away. Are they more savvy now?
absolutely. I had a conversation just this week with a potential client who I said to them, in a broad way, these are all the things I'm going to do for you, my services, if you will. And they came back to me and said, well, I would like to be in 10 media outlets. These are the kinds of media outlets and podcasts that I'm looking for. And not one of them was a newspaper, right? They really and it was interesting because I hadn't really thought about newspapers for them right away, but they wanted to ensure that I was thinking on the same track. And they had a list of all these online publications that mattered to them that, that, for example, gave them authority or gave them some credibility in their given area. In fact, AI has been really big in the news lately. And so one of my potential clients, who's a colleague of mine, is an AI expert. So they asked me, how can I become in the media an AI expert that people go to me for all that information so that I'm riding that wave of popularity and it's going to result in more business. So that's a client who's not in entertainment, but funny enough, I think those kind of clients are coming to people like me more and more because you know what's interesting? If you can handle celebrities and you can handle entertainment, it actually gives you a leg up, if you will, because the creativity that you have honed over the years can be applied to various other experts in their field. Because what are celebrities really but experts in their field, right? And so you can apply all that. But like to your point about getting on a podcast like Joe Rogan, absolutely. I've had people say, I want to be on this particular podcast because the numbers are there for me. But again, as a marketer, Dave, I say, okay, yeah, the numbers are there, but are those people interested in you? Is that your target audience, right? How many people are going to buy what you're selling? For example, buy a ticket to a show in Chicago. Well, let's look at the audience. Maybe only a small percentage is actually in the Chicago area. So a newspaper in Chicago might serve you better if you're trying to sell tickets, if that's the end game there.
So, okay, this is great. This is great, Deborah. So, if I'm somebody thinking about getting into PR, so you have to really analyze the marketplace, analyze target markets, analyze what your client brings to the table, where would be a good fit in regards to various media outlets. So, you also have to know what's going on in the world. Like, what other ingredients do we need to be successful in this industry?
Some of the ingredients include being a really good communicator and listener, right? Because they say that if you can listen, like experts say, if you can listen like 57% of the time and talk like 43% of the time, you're going to be far more successful in almost anything you do. And so publicists get a bad reputation when they're always talking and always advising. And I think it's important to listen to what the client has to say and listen to what their goals are. Then I also think you need to be a good salesperson and persuasive talker because now you only have a couple of minutes to talk to someone if you happen to get them on the phone. More likely, it's going to be on Twitter or X, it's going to be an email. You might even get a phone message. I mean, who knows how you're going to talk to your media person? So you got to be able to punch out those persuasive messages right away. Build relationships is the third one because people want to work with people they like. That happens in every business, but I think also people that they like and trust. So if I'm bringing a client to say a big talk show, the producer there and I want to have a good rapport, a good relationship, so that she knows or he knows they can contact me if they're looking for someone special. Maybe I can get them on the show, and also I know that I can count on them to take care of my client when my client is there, and take care of them, meaning make them feel special and make them you know uh, feel like they are going to be asked again as a guest if they're really good on the show. And because a
Mm.
lot of artists don't really like doing media interviews, so you want to make sure that your relationships are good so you can tell people the truth about the clients you have. Like, do they really want to be there or not, and how do they want to be treated? And so some of the skill levels really have to do with a good good soft skills, durable skills, interpersonal skills. The next one would be organizational skills, especially if you're doing a press day. If you can imagine running around to various outlets and having a car pick up your client and having hair and makeup and all that timing has to be organized very, very well. And then the other thing I would say is, excuse me, the ability, I think, is more and more important is to tell a really good story. I also just said sales experience is good, but telling a good story, that's really about social media today and Instagram. If you understand how to tell a good story, that's going to take you far. And I think that a lot of people perhaps don't even think that that's part of the PR world, but it is. And then finally, I would say be a really good writer. That's still important. You still have to generate press material and you still have to be able to write. And so people in the industry, the entertainment industry in particular, they count on you to show them in their best light. So one of the ways to do that is for them to have confidence in you. So you have to have some self-confidence yourself to be in PR.
So wait a sec, Deborah, you're talking about like generating copy and stuff like that. PR people still send out press releases?
Sometimes they do. Not all
Really?
the time. Not
Okay.
all the time. Sometimes they do. I mean, I would say to you, Dave, that sometimes I actually do put out a press release if I'm sending it out far and wide to the United States,
Hmm.
globally. I may not have a lot of relationships there.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes a press release is warranted when you have a lot of detailed information
Okay.
that can't be found anywhere else. However, if you're pitching a story, I don't think you need a press release to pitch it anymore.
Okay.
I think, and a good pitch, a good email, a good phone call, those things are still important.
All right, let's dive deep into the pitch. Okay, so how do we make it juicy? You're going to an assignment editor or some big show, whatever. Like, what are you thinking when you're crafting that pitch?
I'm thinking, what is the unique selling point that my client brings to this show? That's the number one thing. And also researching the show. What do I think the show needs? You know, and what can we bring to the show maybe hasn't had in a while, or they haven't had ever. And so you really have to think about your knowledge of the show. What's successful, in my view, has been, um, my experience has been pitches where I talk to the producer as if I watch the show all the time and I know them and I know what they're looking for. And I try to sandwich that into the benefits for their audience and then what my client brings. And it really does depend on who your client is, right? Because like nowadays, yeah, I'm talking about a talk show, but if you're talking about a podcast, the podcast is going to have a particular topic. Like this one is about ultimate fun jobs. So you want to make sure that the client that comes on the show can talk about a fun job
Yeah.
and make it interesting, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so I want to be familiar with what you are looking for, maybe a fun job you haven't interviewed for yet.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I know like guest booking for this show, it's all about like finding fun jobs. And if like a PR person's coming at me, that person's trying to find gaps. Okay, what haven't you had? Like what you just mentioned. So that makes total sense.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about schooling. Like
Mhm.
man, the topic of school, like is school necessary for this industry? Like nowadays, I just don't know anymore about post-secondary education. I just don't know.
Well, I am a part-time professor at
Oh,
Durham College, and I teach arts administration.
okay.
So I would say yes, it helps. It helps a lot.
Okay,
I
fair enough.
teach music marketing, music management, business, and communications in the music industry. So on the one hand, Dave, it is good to have the foundations of communications, like I talked about. It also, if you're in a college environment where you're learning arts administration, your professors are all going to have experience working in the industry, and hopefully, you're going to hook you up with an informational interview, an internship, or even a job. So that is one of the benefits of going to a school like that. The other thing is, if you're an artist and you're transitioning from being a singer songwriter into business management, say, for example, you want to open your own agency and you just don't want to be an artist any longer, like post secondary is really good for that.
Mhm.
And now, in the public relations and communications field, I think that employers still look at your resume to see you have some post secondary experience because, as I mentioned, writing and communication skills are so important. Now, I sometimes say to my other students who are artists, like, you don't really need a post secondary education if you're an artist. Like, you can just do your thing, and you know, it's a young person's game being in the music industry.
Mm,
So do it while you can.
got it. So let's talk about a day in the life. Okay, being a
Yeah.
PR person, a successful one, there's a lot on the go. So tell me, okay, hold my hand. You're helping your client. Okay, with a press day, how about that? So what
Right,
does that look like from like morning till night?
right. A press day. Okay. You know what I'll use as an example, which was a fun one, is
Okay.
I worked with Mick Jones, with who's the, one of the head lead singers, lead guitar players for Foreigner,
Yes.
the band Foreigner. I mean, they have so many number one hits. They've been around for 40 years.
Yep.
And Mick Jones is like probably 73, 74 years old now. So my job was to spend the entire day with him doing press interviews from early morning to night. So someone like him, like you can imagine, he's worked with PR people all over North America and probably all over Europe. So I was a little bit nervous about making sure that, he liked me and everything was going to be okay. Because the last thing you want is someone having a hissy fit and getting upset at you, right?
Hmm.
So starting in the morning, I had to go pick him up at his hotel room. Well, sometimes you don't have access to the person directly. He flew in the day before from Los Angeles with his wife, and he had a personal assistant who I had to deal with, a personal assistant to say I was going to come pick up Mick at this time, and here's the itinerary. Is everything okay? And he said, I'll get back to you.
Oh man.
Now, I had already days earlier sent this itinerary to his management company in London, England. And so they had to approve it, which they did. But then the personal assistant, I wanted to make sure that they were still okay with it because it was less than 24 hours. Now, meantime, while I'm waiting for them to confirm everything, I have to call all my media contacts on that list and say, okay, we'll see you at 9 o'clock. Are we still a go? Is everything still happening? Is it okay? And then I have to go to the one after that, and the one after that, and confirm every single one throughout the day. And then I also had a town car, which was going to take us around. So I had to confirm that the town car was still going to come at the right time. And in this case, we were doing breakfast TV really, really early in the morning. So I had to pick him up, I think, at about 6:30 to be there at 7. Well, his personal assistant got back to me right away and said, okay, we're not going to the breakfast TV show for 7 o'clock. Like, that's just way too early.
Oh man.
And
Okay.
so the first thing I'm thinking of is, why didn't someone tell me this earlier before I confirmed it? But
Oh,
of course, TV shows really do want you there early because they want to make sure that you're actually there. It's not necessarily about the hair and makeup. By the way, hair and makeup is not provided any longer. So you have to come camera ready.
oh,
And that's kind of tough because especially men don't usually carry around a makeup kit with them. So, we always get a little bit of powder on men to sort of take the shine off in the lights.
yep.
And women too, like they used to rely on the makeup artist to make them look really good with those hot television lights, and we don't actually do makeup for TV in real life. So it used to be really helpful to have those makeup artists, and now they're just not there. They've been laid off. One of those jobs that was a great fun job that's no longer around.
Yeah.
And so I had to call them and say, okay, Mick wants to come, at 7:30 instead of 7. And I think he was on at 10 to 8. So it was really cutting it close to 8 o'clock. And I had to explain to them, he's a superstar. He just flew in from LA. I had to try to make up a story
Right.
about how it would be difficult. And if they insisted on him being there at 7 a.m., he wasn't going to make it.
Hmm.
Now they've been promoting, that's such a word, doing the promos for his appearance all day and the day before. So they were okay with it. They said at the end, they were not too happy because they said, we really do like to have them here. But one of the things, Dave, I think was in my favor is that they knew me and they knew that I would bring him for the time that I said I would. I've been there with hundreds of guests before.
Mm-hmm.
And so they knew that I would do that. So I think that helped a lot. So we had to get the car, pick him up, bring him there for 7:30. When I get there, everybody looks very nervous because they're sort of, anticipating, he's late and we got to get this show on the road. So that happens. That goes very, very well. He comes with his manager from London, England. So I didn't know that he was coming along, which was fine, except that they're talking business in the car the whole way. I don't get a chance to go through the itinerary. I don't get a chance to talk to him about anything that's happening after the breakfast television appearance. So that can make, so you have to feel confident that the manager remembers the itinerary, and you have to make sure you've got an extra one with you, and make sure that, they're remembering what's happening, because I didn't get a word in. And then they looked at me and said, okay, what's next at the end of it? And so we went through the entire day, had a great time. And but one of the things I have to be careful of is you have to be careful that um, they're not getting too tired, and that there's not a lot of fans around to annoy them. Now, Mick's a great guy and he signs autographs, but we want to make sure that there's not an intrusive group of people where you go. So one of my jobs is often to get out of the car first and scope out the area and make sure no one's going to, jump in front of him with an album that they want him to sign, and he's not
Right.
aware of that, and his
So
personal
wait a
space.
sec, Deborah, you're part security detail?
Part security detail, indeed. Yes, that's true. And so, and sometimes you actually have to talk to the fans and tell them no,
Hmm.
which is kind of a drag if they brought little kids with them and the kids are big fans and they want to get an autograph. Um, because then it is a business. You have to be all business to make these things happen. One of the things people ask me a lot is, did you get a picture of you with this celebrity? Did you get an autograph for you with this celebrity? So, my answer is, well, of course not, because I'm a professional and I'm working with them all day.
Right.
How weird would that be if I just turned into fangirl at some point?
Yep. Yep. For sure.
Like, you'd have this strange look, that you'd be given.
Just doing the selfie with Mick. Nice.
So what I do, squeeze in that moment, is later that day, we go to a radio station, and the radio host was a huge fan and they had met before. So the radio host said, we always do a picture with the guests. Come on over, let's do that photo. Radio stations put it on the web. So at that point, I'm doing the picture as well with them, taking the picture. And then I just jump in and said, oh, let's just do one more. And then I jump in and I get myself with Mick and the radio host. And then at this point, this radio host said, let me just get one of you and Mick, because he's an old friend and he thought, I'd probably want one just of me and Mick, which he was right. And he took that of me and Mick. But that would be the only moment where I could actually squeeze myself in, because Mick's already doing that. But the rest of the time, forget it.
Oh,
And I didn't get an autograph, of course, because that's something you don't do, because it just isn't professional,
for sure.
right? Yeah.
It sounds like you have to be really good at organization, Deborah. Like, wow, there's a lot of moving parts, it sounds like.
There are a lot of moving parts. And then throughout the day, you can be also getting calls from other media asking you to book him, because then they'll see him. Sometimes if someone's a big star like him, they'll see him on BT. And then you might get a call from CBC saying, can you bring him tomorrow morning? Or can you
Right.
bring them this evening on radio? And so you're having to take those calls as well and field them, and then maybe ask, hey, can we squeeze something in or not, while
Right.
they're sitting right there. And you never ask the artist. You can only ask the manager or the personal assistant in that case. And my client really wanted as much media as possible. We had tickets to sell. So there's always that bottom line. But they also had an album that they were promoting, and it was 40 years in the business. So it was an important album to them. So fortunately for me, Mick was really cooperative and wanted to do all the press, because it was really an important milestone in his career.
So, well, that's amazing. I'm glad it worked out. So how do you get clients? Like, if I'm starting out, I got my own business, PR business, you got to hustle. So what are you doing? Like, how are you getting out there?
Right. It's a combination of word of mouth and you doing some cold calls, good old sales calls, seeing what your competition's doing, and sometimes swooping in and saying to somebody, oh, would you like to talk to me next year about this season. I see that you're the season that say it's a theater and they've got lots of shows and I'm talking about a subscription season and they've had someone working there for a while on contract, or maybe they have internal PR. You might call them and just say, hey, can we have a talk, an informational coffee, you know,
Right.
and see if you can pitch them on the idea of hiring you to help raise their profile in the community. So those three things that are sort of top. And then the other thing would be is using the people that you like, using some of the clients you've had before to say good things about you on your website, so that you have some really good testimonials.
Yeah.
And that, because a lot of people do look at your website and they don't even see what you write about your business, they just want to see what other people say about you.
Right. So just getting that
So
social proof. Got it. Yeah.
yeah, I have to say for me though, like, my jobs have always come by word of mouth. I'm very
Mm.
fortunate that way. Now, I have to say though, over the years, because people, come and go in the business, you do have to try to keep your contacts up so people keep referring you. It's not like you can just sit back and, wait for the phone to ring.
So like, do you keep, okay, so throughout the years, like I say like old clients, you ring them up and say, hey, Charlie, just wanted to check in. How are you doing? And all that small talk. Is that what you do?
Sometimes,
Okay.
mostly to the managers,
Okay.
yeah. And the managers expect it because they've got other artists that they're working with and other, PR people. Yeah, that's part of it. And part of it is, shooting an email time from time to time. Sometimes you can maybe go to a show and then see people backstage, talk to them there. The other thing is, I've actually been really fortunate to have friendly competitors. So
Mm.
I've called up other competitors and said to them, hey, let's collaborate, or do you want to throw business to me sometimes and I'll throw business to you sometimes, because there
Wow.
might not be a right fit there
Right.
for either one of us, or one of us might, be more involved in music and one of us might be more involved in film and TV. So I've actually made friends with other competitors that way, because they actually will take a phone call from someone and decide if it's really the right client for them. And if they can refer someone off to you, then that's good business for them too, because then they're actually answering the call that was made to them. So I've done that too, and that works out well.
I think that's great. You know what? You would think with competitors, there's a sense of scarcity. Like, no, this is my client. So it's really cool to hear that there are, competitors that are open to that in your industry. Because when I think PR, I think it's pretty like competitive and like, just grab what you can get kind of thing. So that's good to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. Not everybody wants certain clients as well. you know, that's
Right.
the other kind of funny thing. Some of your competitors might have clients that you really don't want, and it's just not a right fit. So it works out really well. But it can be a bit cutthroat. Like, you have to decide, are you the kind of person that's going to phone up, let's say, you know, Roy Thompson Hall. Let's say there's a competitor of yours that does all the PR for all the shows at Roy Thompson Hall. Are you going to be that person that goes to Roy Thompson Hall and takes someone out to lunch and tries to persuade them to work with you?
Mm.
You know, Mm, that might get back to your friendly competitor,
Got it.
you
Got it.
know?
Sure.
So I
Sure.
think you have to wait for the right opening. There's
Right.
sometimes there are openings that happen. And so you might have to wait for that. Like, it's like things like, if you hear that the contract is coming to an end and they're looking for, you know, people to apply, or they're looking for a change, like that might be more of a, gossipy, right?
Right.
And then you might just want to throw your hat in the ring then.
Sure. So, okay, let's talk about some of your client. Okay, we're not going to mention names, obviously, but I'm very super curious because I'm a little bit nosy. So, do any of your clients do they have like any demands? Like, I only get red M&Ms, stuff like that. Like, have there been some like that?
Oh, absolutely. There are. I actually just last week just saw on a friend's Facebook feed, Frank Sinatra's old rider. for his backstage catering requests. I don't know if you've seen that going around on the internet. It's kind of amazing. And it was one of the most outrageous ones that I saw. But I think in my own experience, I have when I used to work at Skydome, which is now called Rogers Center. And so there were lots of demands because we had big stars coming in there. So some things included, repainting the dressing rooms, you know, providing furniture that was all white instead of the furniture that was there,
Oh my God.
having a trailer instead of a dressing room because they didn't want to actually use dressing rooms that could be smelly, because you're in a sports stadium,
Right.
right? Um, Providing catering from a certain restaurant, making sure that everything is, you know, dietary needs, of course, things like I would say, a specific alcohol. Like they might want like 2 bottles of Jim Beam and, a six to be a particular brand of things. And a lot of times, Dave, they'll ask for so much. You think the quantity of what they're asking for, there's no way they're going to drink 2 of those bottles and 6 of those beers and then, a case of champagne during their show. But they ask for them because they want them for their crew or they want them
Mhm.
to take on their bus with them. And so you just kind of have to shrug your shoulders and give it to them and say, okay.
How do you deal with the egos? Like, what's the psychology? How do you approach that?
Yeah, I think that one of the ideas I've always thought about is just always being professional with them and not assuming if they're super friendly that this is going to last beyond today. Right? Like, because sometimes that happens that they like you and they want to hang out with you that day, but it doesn't mean you're going to get invited to their house in Los Angeles. You're going to hang with them.
Hmm.
Right. And so I think, the ego is that they're there to do a job and they want you to take care of them and they want you to, speak well of them. So they're going to actually put on their best face. And so I think if you go in there thinking that this is a job for them and that, again, don't be a fan, don't talk to them about fan ideas, fan things, but how your mother loves them so much and plays their albums nonstop. I don't think they really care. So I think you really have to think about being professional. And then the other thing I think is important is that you have to be able to take no for an answer if you do ask them something. Like I remember once an artist was playing at the Rogers Center and we wanted her to autograph 20 posters for Sick Kids Hospital. And we had not asked in advance to do that. And we had, had them all ready. And, there was a bunch of people from Sick Kids Hospital that wanted to meet them.
Mm.
And we just went in and asked her to sign them. And I won't name who it is, but she looked at me and said, I'll sign them, but I'm not meeting anybody, you
Wow.
know, because she said, I'm just not prepared to do that. Nobody asked me. I don't like, I really got to get ready for the show. But
Okay.
I understand it's a Sick Kids Hospital. But then she looked at me and she said, I better not see these for sale on the internet.
Right. Yep.
Right. Because she
Yep.
says, I'm only signing them because they're for the Sick Kids Hospital.
Hmm.
And I was like taken aback by that. I was like, no, absolutely. Like the people are here. Like they'd love to meet you. And she's like, I don't have time for that, but I'll sign them, you know.
Got it. Interesting. Well, I sort
So
of get it. Like if you're in your zone and you got a routine, you got a show. I get that. Why she would say
yeah,
something like that. I get it.
yeah. Oh, I was really pleased that she actually signed them because
Yes.
like at least they had that to auction off or give away or what have you. But so you have to sort of, realize that, oh, I didn't actually get this approved in advance. So I had to go out and tell the people from Sick Kids Hospital that were there, hoping to see this artist before the show. They all had tickets to the show,
Hmm.
that there was just no way they were going to meet her.
Okay.
And so that was something I probably should have cleared in advance, but I remember my boss just like sort of saying, can you just do this? And then you get caught up in the moment and you go, yeah, sure. And then you just, end up being the person that has to say, sorry, it didn't happen for you.
Right. Oh, well.
Yeah. So I think sometimes they say about publicity that you're never thanked when things go really well, but you're blamed when things go badly.
Oh, man. My goodness.
Right?
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, Deborah, you know what? This has been great. Just wondering if you could pass along one more piece of advice to the aspiring PR person, whether that person's starting out in their career or maybe pivoting to PR from another. Any final bit of advice?
Final bit of advice would be don't exaggerate, don't over promise. So I would say always under promise and over deliver. And make sure that when you're actually working with media and that you're not paying for media. Like, I think legitimate press should be free. And there are lots of new, younger companies out there who are doing what they call pay to play, which means you just get a spot and then you charge your client. So let's say I get my client on your podcast and you do it for free, but then I charge my client, say, $1,000 to appear on your podcast. I don't really think that's very ethical.
Mm.
I can charge for my time and working on the account with them, but I don't think I should be charging them per podcast or per interview basis. And I think that's what I find is not great. So that would be my advice: is make sure that you're working ethically.
I love it. I love it. Deborah, so where can people find out more about you? Your website, where can they find you?
Yeah, my website is dkpr.ca, and I'm also on LinkedIn under Deborah Knight, and you can find me there. dknight@dkpr.ca is my email.
Awesome. Deborah, thank you so much.
Great to talk to you, Dave. Thanks again.
All right, that was a solid chat with Deborah. She just provided some amazing insight into what it takes to get into the PR industry. No doubt it will be helpful to somebody out there, maybe you, if you want to get into the PR field. All right, that's it for this interview. Please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel and podcast. Until next time, take care and have a good one.